Good morning. I'm Phil Bruckner, the winter wheat breeder for Montana Ag Experiment Station, and we're happy to have you visiting our nursery here in Bozeman today. I'm here today with my partner in winter wheat breeding for the last 25 years, Jim Berg, who's going to talk to you a little bit later, but we're happy to show the yield trials and some of the other research that we have here in Bozeman today. And we thought, since you were here in Bozeman, that we might show you a little more diverse offerings than we sometimes do at field days. A little tour that highlights some other things in addition to the yield trial. But of most importance is the interstate yield trial that we have right here today. And this is a nursery that's at 9 sites, including 7 research centers. It's the nursery that we use to decide whether to release a new variety, and you use to look at performance data of varieties at different locations and over different years. First of all, I'd just like to thank you for your support of our program. In addition to the federal and state tax dollars that support Montana Ag Experiment Station, we're certainly happy that you as producers of Montana support our program through checkup funding administered by Wheat and Barley Committee. So thank you for that. I mentioned this trial has 49 entries. It's about a third of older lines that are currently in production. About a third are new Montana lines that we're evaluating for commercial potential. And then about a third of lines from commercial companies that would like to market wheat varieties in Montana. So with that, I will have Jim Berg talk about this nursery.
Okay, thank you, Phil, for the introduction. I'm going to go through about 12 varieties and say a little bit about each one. Just to go backwards a little bit, in this test we have 28 named varieties and 21 experimentals. Of the 28 named varieties, 14 are private company and 14 are public varieties. Of the experimental, of the 21 experimentals, 19 are Montana up-and-coming lines and 2 are private company experimentals. We're going to start off with Yellowstone here. This has been a long time yield king for Montana. It probably was the #1 leading variety from 2012 to 2017. It is now has the 3rd largest acreage in Montana from 2019, but still a very high yielding line. Kallen is a very high yielding line. It's out of Westbred, Monsanto. It is the 3rd leading variety in the state of Montana last year with 9% of the acreage. I'm sorry, it's the 4th leading variety with 9% of the acreage. It is probably the 2nd leading variety across this whole set of lines that we've been testing lately. Here we have SY Clearstone 2CL. It is a Montana developed variety, but licensed to Syngenta AgriPro. It is a variety, a 2-gene Clearfield variety. It can be planted in areas where there's a lot of grassy weeds. It is a Yellowstone type. It is a high yielding variety also. Here we have Judy. It is the 5th leading variety in the state of Montana after being #2 for quite a few years. It is now at 2011 a slightly older solid stem line. It doesn't have the highest solidness, but it's still a very good stander. It is really high quality and works real well in the triangle area where sawflies are present. Here we have SY Monument, another Syngenta AgriPro variety. It's an up-and-comer. It probably had 40,000 acres last year. Very high yielding, probably the 3rd highest yielding in the top 5-6 tier group. This is Bobcat. We're probably most excited about this variety. It is very, very solid and very high yielding. Works excellent in the triangle here. It was just released in 2019. It was available to seed growers last fall. Registered seed will be available this year, and probably certified seed in fall of 2021. Very good quality also, but standability is amazing under sawfly pressure. Next is 406. It's a new variety too, released in 2018. It is a high yielding variety with extremely good quality. It's one of the best quality lines we've seen in a long time. Here we have LCS Jet. This is the highest yielding variety in the state in the last 3 years. Nice short variety with big fat heads. It is pretty amazing variety in the yield profile so far. Here we have Northern. Northern's been kind of a sleeper. I don't think much acreage has been grown. It is a Yellowstone type, hollow stem variety. It yields really well, at least 5% better than Yellowstone, and it is a Yellowstone type. Very good quality too. Here we have Warhorse. Warhorse has been the leading variety the last 2 years in Montana. It's a solid stem variety, very good solidness, good yield in the triangle, and also decent quality. Here we have Brawl CL+. This is out of the Colorado breeding program. It is the #2 variety at just a little over 13% last year. It's another Clearfield variety used to control grassy weeds. I think the growers in Montana really like it because it's very early. You can look and see by the grain turning color here at this time of year. Okay, last but not least, we have Flathead, another new variety released last year. We're excited about this one too. It is, besides being in the top tier of yield, it has good quality, and the one thing that probably excites us most is it's an early short variety that might have a place where earliness could be desired. Okay, now we're over in the Sawfly nursery. This is a nursery that's at 5 locations around the state, most of them up at in the Triangle at Hingham, Big Sandy, Havre, and Fort Benton, besides being here in Bozeman. This is a earlier generation. These are the first year that they've been given an MT number. This is another 49 entry test. 8 or 10 of these lines are also in the interstate test as either checks or as experimental varieties. So what we're doing with these lines is clipping stems at all 5 of the locations. We take 5 stems and evaluate the internodes for solidness. What we're doing with all the stem sets we collect around the state in this and other sawfly test is assess solidness at the internodes. So between the nodes, and if you look at these stems closely, you can see the difference between Judy at the lower end and Yellowstone. So the hollow is Yellowstone and the more solid is Judy. And what we assess is 5 for completely solid and a 1 for a hollow line. So what we're doing is adding up the internodes and giving all these stems a 5 to 25 score. My student Caleb has gone through a couple thousand stems and only has 500 left, and then he'll be done for the season.
Well, here in Bozeman, we also have the serial forage test that you've probably seen at some of the research centers. And this is a trial that's being done at 5 locations, including Bozeman, to evaluate forage potential of winter wheat lines. Our check cultivars are Willow Creek, our standard, a Ray that we replaced or added to our arsenal in 18. And then we have FX 1001 as a check in the trial also. So just showing you that we would like to harvest our forages at the soft dough stage, which we will do next week. And in addition to the checks, this line would have 4 Montana experimental lines that we will be testing to see if they're worth releasing as cultivars in the future.
So here we have what we're calling the Montana Historical Test. It's got 64 entries times 3 reps. It represents 40 of the varieties that we have released since we started back in 1915 with our first release, called Montana number 36. It's the rest of the lines, the other 20 lines in this test are lines that had sizable acreage going forward in our testing program. I'm standing next to Turkey Red, which came to the US in 1879. A lot of the early tall varieties are reselections out of that. We have on varieties. What I want to look at is both yield and agronomic characteristics to look at the progress we've hopefully made over the years and our varieties versus other people's varieties. Also, I'd like to take a look at quality to see, have we improved quality over the century, let's say.
The last topic I'd like to mention today is our Clearfield winter wheat breeding program. Most of the breeding and selection is done at another site at Fort Ellis, east of Bozeman, and there we would use a 2x rate of imazamox, the herbicide in question for Clearfield wheat. So, and all our breeding and selection at that other site would be under 2x herbicide rate. And of course, once we identify Clearfield, 2-gene Clearfield lines that have herbicide resistance, we put them into our normal trials that we talked about earlier. And our Clearfield lines need to be competitive with the non-Clearfield wheats. And in addition, they have to have the herbicide resistance and the crop tolerance necessary for commercial production. So what we have here is 2 candidate cultivars, potential cultivars of Clearfield wheats, and MTCL 1732 and MTCL 1737. One's a little earlier, one's a little later. These are hollow stem Clearfield lines, and this is what we call a breeder seed increase. Even before we decide we're going to release something, when something's promising, we start increasing the seed. So once it's released as variety, we have foundation seed available and ready to go. So our Clearfield program, I think one of these lines could be released in the next year or so as a hollow stem Clearfield line.